This is the road to Basra. The Iraqi army jammed this highway and other roads as coalition ground forces moved into Kuwait. For coalition warplanes overhead, they were perfect targets. It became known as the Highway of Death, and a harsh example of Allied air power during Operation Desert Storm. The coalition used overwhelming air power to defeat a brutal dictator and free a nation. In this program, the air commanders of Desert Storm talk about how they fought the war, focusing on the U.S. Air Force's role. August 7th, 1990. President Bush, responding to the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, orders American forces to deploy to Saudi Arabia. U.S. Central Command Air Forces, or USCENTAF, had to move its forces 7,000 miles quickly. Within days, 5 U.S. Air Force squadrons and 2 U.S. carriers arrived in the Gulf. U.S. CENTAF Commander Lieutenant General Chuck Horner recalls the deployment.
Initially, we had to get people over here rapidly because of the threat of Iraqi invasion. So we brought over those kinds of airplanes you need to defend and deter, such as air defense aircraft, AWACS, F-16s, and A-10s do ground attack missions, and also the F-15E to provide us capability at night.
In just 5 weeks, the coalition Air Force outnumbered the Iraqi Air Force.
When it became apparent that we were successful in that initial effort, we then fleshed the force out with more aircraft, primarily aircraft such as B-52s, more A-10s, more F-16s.
The coalition organized its air power for wartime with General Horner as the single air commander, or air boss.
We created 4 air divisions. One air division under General Caruana handled the tankers and bomber aircraft. The second one under General Glosson handled the fighters, the attack aircraft. Glenn Prophet commanded the air division associated electronic warfare, and General Tenoso had the airlift operations. So we were able to define each air division by function, and then that way we could provide the command and control we needed to execute the war.
We began to open locations throughout Saudi Arabia. And as we began to get more operating locations, we moved tankers into locations in Oman, the United Arab Emirates, and as well as Diego Garcia.
The coalition would eventually have close to 3,000 planes. These fighter and attack planes patrolled the desert, providing cover for the largest military airlift in history. Airlift, the hidden part of air power. It was the fastest way to get enough men and material over to defend the Desert Kingdom. Brigadier General Edwin Tenoso commanded the coalition's airlift forces.
And then the deployment of the C-5s, 141s, the Craft aircraft, the KC-10s, they all just hauled as much as they could, as fast as they could. Very early on, it was evident that Desert Shield was going to surpass by far the number of strategic airlift that we'd ever had before.
Military and civilian cargo planes delivered 91,000 troops and 72,000 tons of cargo in the month of August alone to places like Riyadh, Jubail, Dhahran.
Dhahran in the early goings was wall-to-wall planes. Literally, planes would be holding until a plane took off so another plane could land. In November and December, after the president decided we needed more forces on, we actually went into a second peak. We went through the same thing, hauling maximum use of strategic forces to bring things into the theater.
The Allies began planning a military offensive to liberate Kuwait. General Norman Schwarzkopf was commander-in-chief of the Allied forces in theater. His concept for Operation Desert Storm called for an intense, massive air campaign to prepare the way for the Allied ground offensive.
fundamental towards any air campaign is the first job of any war, and that's seize control of the air.